Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are going to go ahead and check out another of these Meng models. This is a newer company that has only recently begun releasing very cool dinosaur models. We have taken a look at one already, which was the Sinoceratops. This time, as you can see, we have the Zhuchengtyrannus, and we've got a really cool image here on the front. Very nice artwork for the box, the Meng logo up there, and of course the species name. Also the fact that it is 1/72nd scale, which is not a scale you often see in dinosaur figures like this. Over here on the side you have some information on the dinosaur and the model, and then again some more really cool artwork that actually features the Sinoceratops. And I really wanted to bring my Sinoceratops in for a size comparison, but I don't know where I put it. It's actually a really small model, so it's very easy to lose track of it, and I've been looking around to try to remember where I put it, and I don't know where I put it. But you can see the other side again features the same type of artwork and stuff, and then some more information over here. So let's pop this box open and check it out. So first of all, you get some really cool cards with the figure, one of which here basically shows off some nice art of the dinosaur. Pretty cool color scheme that they actually have on that version. Not exactly the same color scheme that we have for the figure itself. Similar for sure, very, very similar. Actually, I would say it's mostly, I would say it is actually the same color. It's just the red in the throat is a little more obvious, a little more vibrant than what I've seen on the figure itself. So that's interesting. But then you also have another card that shows off the skeletal reconstruction of the dinosaur as well, which is really cool. And then the back does have some stuff on it, but unfortunately I cannot read it. Oh, actually this one has some English, so we can read it on here. But again, a really cool combo of cards that they include, and they actually have a very nice, very solid, durable feel. Then here is our dinosaur, our Zhuchengtyrannus, and I don't have it all the way into the base correctly, so let me go ahead and get that in there quick. Push that down, push the front foot down, and there we go. And it definitely looks really nice. I actually really quite like the paint scheme they've given it. And these models I feel like are almost a little underrated because sculpt-wise, it looks really quite beautiful. And the paint is actually really well done for what this figure is. Again, considering the size, the fact that it is 1/72nd scale, means it is significantly smaller than most dinosaur figures that we usually see, though this one definitely has a decent size to it. It's a good bit larger than the Sinoceratops was, which is of course a plus for this figure, but it overall has really, really nice paintwork. I think the only thing that could have improved the paint would have been like a dark wash to kind of tie it all together, because the transitions are pretty smooth. The patterning looks nice for what it is. It looks fairly natural, and the paint looks overall quite nicely done. Same deal for the base. The base also has some pretty nice looking paintwork. So pretty excited to go ahead and jump to a closer look at this one. So let's jump to it right now. So, starting up here at the head sculpt of our Zhuchengtyrannus, you can see it looks pretty nice. You've got some fairly decent looking detail, maybe a little bit muted compared to what we're used to. Like if you look at companies like PNSO or How Long Good or someone like that, I feel like the detail isn't quite as vibrant as what you see on those companies' figures, but it is still very nicely done. We have the nostrils up here on the tip of the snout. You've got some really beautiful orangish tones moving up and over the top of the head, definitely giving some nice flashiness to that area, and then darker tones as you move down into the face that you turn into like a black tone of color. The eye is painted with a yellow, given a black pupil. Not the best painted eye in the world. This one looks a little bit better. I feel like the eye on this side might just be a little bit too big overall, like they just applied too much paintwork, but it doesn't look terrible. You can see the teeth are all kind of sculpted together. I, of course, would prefer to see them sculpted individually. I think it always makes a figure look better when they're sculpted individually, and the paint is a bit thick in this area as well, but it definitely could be worse. Just, it's more so looking like a jumbled pile of teeth rather than the actual teeth of the dinosaur, if that makes any sense. They're just kind of jumbled together, and the paintwork isn't doing it any favors as they kind of all blend together. But you can see the darker tone that we have for the inside of the mouth, the tongue in there as well, and we have a nice gloss coat kind of shining there for the inside of the mouth, sort of a satin shine, giving it that saliva-like look. Moving back here into the back of the head, you can see the ear of the dinosaur. We can also see as we move up, we begin to pick up a pretty cool looking patterning moving down along the spinal column of our Zhuchengtyrannus. As you move down, you can see lots of creasing in the skin here of the neck. You can also see that darker tone follows along the neck, moving down, tapering away as we lead down into the shoulder area. We do also have some more of that tone of color here on the underside. It looks more like an orange here. It was more of a red on the card, but definitely a really cool little area of paintwork down there. But as you move down into the body, you can see the skin texture does look really, really nice. Again, they've done a great job, I think, on the skin texture of the figure here. As you move down into the arms, we return back to that darker tone. You can see the fingers are sculpted pretty decently. The nails are painted with a black. As you move up and we kind of turn the figure, you can see the rib cage shining right there a little bit. You can also see the skin texture again continues to look really nice, and I feel like the skin texture has those nice kind of cracks and crevices to it where a dark wash would have laid perfectly on this figure. But you can also see that we primarily have like a green for the body color, a lighter green, but you see like the darker tone again pick back up as you move into the rear part of the stomach and also into the thigh right there. We continue to have that patterning moving down along the back of the dinosaur, although it kind of starts to be, looks like it's kind of breaking up the further back we get along the back of our dinosaur. As you move down, the muscle definition is definitely nicely displayed. You can also see the skin stretching here off of the tail because the dinosaur's taking a pretty far step forward. We have the calf muscle right there, the knee and the front of the leg, and again we transition to a darker tone down into the feet. You've got a black for the feet and also some nicely painted nails with a gray. And then as we move back up and we head out into the tail, that patterning really has broken up now and becomes more of like a striping effect as you lead out here through the course of the tail, but it's sort of like a zigzag kind of jumbled striping effect that they have going on. Very strong curve for the tail of the dinosaur. Not a huge fan of how strong that curve is. I don't know how realistic it is. I mean, it looks maybe, unless the dinosaur's making like a quick turn, I feel like I don't know why it would have been, you know, curling the tail in that fashion. But if you look over here at the opposing side of the head, again, it looks really good over here, just as it did on the first side. Again, pretty consistent to what we had seen over there. You've got some more nice detailing here as you move down into the neck, that darker tone following along down here, though I feel like it kind of starts to taper away a little bit earlier than we saw on the other side. And of course we move down into the arm transitions to the darker tone, but also, like you can see, the whole arm is that darker tone over here. As you lead down over here, it looks like more so just the hand, so little inconsistencies as far as the paintwork goes. But again, as we move up into the stomach, you can see the detail looks excellent on the figure. You also transition again back to that darker tone. You also have a little bit of that darker tone very nicely showing up in the back of the leg leading into the tail. The darker tone also runs down the front of the thigh a little bit, and then we lead down into the toes, and you can see how the dinosaur is picking its foot up off of the ground, taking a step. You can also see the dew claws are sculpted out, of course, but they're not painted, unfortunately. You can see that they remain black, and the nails of the feet are actually a gray, so a little bit of a bummer there. But as you lead out into the tail, again, you see that strong curve with that very interesting patterning. So it's a really cool figure. It's obviously not any type of a masterpiece that's going to take down the PNSO version, which I think is probably the best version that we have out, but it is still quite nice. And then we've also got a pretty cool base, and you can see the base absolutely has some nice paintwork to it, as well as texturing. They've really captured a nice earthy area here. When it comes to the texturing, you can see all sorts of like little pebbles and stones and stuff, and just kind of like a nice earthy, sort of almost like a muddy kind of area where our dinosaur is walking through. Good bit of variation of color as well, you know. That's definitely a really nicely painted base for something like this. So it really shows that Meng does intend on putting out a great product when they put this much care and attention into a base. And obviously we have the footprints for our dinosaur as it's walking through with the peg holes, and then the underside doesn't really have anything on it, but that is actually a very impressive base for something like this. I will say the figure definitely does not like to stay into the base. The front foot is fine. That foot stays fine, but this foot consistently lifts itself back up out of the peg holes. And maybe if you glued it on, I think it would stand perfectly fine, but I don't think we really need to. And even still, you know, you can see it's on there pretty good, at least as far as the front foot goes. It's just the rear foot keeps reappearing up out of the base. But as far as a size goes, Lengthwise, you were looking at about 6 inches or around 15 centimeters, maybe a hair over. The highest point is definitely the tail at about just a little over 2 3/4 inches, approaching 3 inches, but not quite, or a hair under 7.5 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Golovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A Human being next to our Meng Zhuchengtyrannus, and you can see it is pretty small, but not really small. You know, it's not what I would consider a minifigure. It's obviously a little bit smaller than like an Attack Pack size ranged figure, but definitely not minifigure size range. And to show you that, there is a Mattel Mini and a Toy Monster International Captives minifigure next to the Zhuchengtyrannus. So you can really see, again, that the size difference is pretty impressive when it comes to minifigure size range. Obviously, our Meng figure isn't in the minifigure area. I would say it's just a small figure. We've also got a Mattel Velociraptor and Dilophosaurus next to the Zhuchengtyrannus, which again shows you that it's kind of similar in size to those figures, maybe a little bit smaller. And then for a comparison here that's pretty interesting, we have the Safari Ltd Tyrannus, which you can see is ever so slightly bigger than our Zhuchengtyrannus, which that should help to give you an idea, again, roughly of the size. And wouldn't you know it, I did find my Meng Sinoceratops. It was pretty much hiding in plain sight, so I brought that one in here for one final comparison next to our Zhuchengtyrannus to give you an idea of how these two size up next to each other. Obviously, the size difference is pretty big, and when you look at the Sinoceratops, that very much so is in what I would consider the minifigure size range, but the Zhuchengtyrannus is clearly significantly larger, which is nice because these figures are actually fairly expensive considering their size. You know, that Sinoceratops was like $20 and it's very small. I think it's on sale quite often nowadays for around $15, but the Zhuchengtyrannus is also, and this is of course on eBay prices here in the United States and also AliExpress prices, the Zhuchengtyrannus is around $25 to $28 usually, which in my opinion is a little bit closer to worth it, but still a bit expensive for something like this. So this brand new Meng Zhuchengtyrannus in 1/72nd scale is definitely a fun figure. Honestly, when I first acquired their Sinoceratops, though I thought it was nice, I wasn't that impressed with it, and I was like, well, I don't know if I'm going to grab any more. I might just stray away from the line, and it wasn't until I really started to look at this Zhuchengtyrannus where I started to kind of be a little more inclined to get a hold of one. And then I reached out to my good friend Dino Mike Mac and asked him basically what the prices were in his area, and they are a bit cheaper there than they are here, of course. So I had him pick this up for me and of course send it my way with quite a few other dinosaur figures. And here in hand, I will say I am definitely more impressed this time around than I was with the Sinoceratops. I think the sculpt looks a lot nicer, which the Sinoceratops sculpt was nice, but this one's just bigger, so you can really appreciate the sculpt, I think, a little better. And the fine detail does look very impressive moving through the majority of the figure. I think it's a little muted in the face, but once you lead back into the body, for the most part, I think it looks pretty nice. The paintwork as well is really nicely done. There's a good bit of variation of color, very smooth transitions, nice color choices as well. I feel like they definitely look natural on the figure. Pretty cool patterning, and a decent pose as the dinosaur has a little bit of an action pose going on, kind of making it look like it is pursuing the Sinoceratops, which is actually what we saw in the box art for the figures, so kind of makes sense, I guess. The base is also really nicely done, again, maybe even better than the dinosaur itself as far as the paint and quality. It's a very highly detailed base, very crisp, and actually has a good bit of nice paintwork for it, so pretty darn nice base to go with a fairly decent Zhuchengtyrannus. So again, if you are interested in picking one of these up for yourself, I will include a link in the description to where you can do that. I will try to find the cheapest listing I can, probably on AliExpress, maybe on eBay, I'm not too sure. One way or another, check the link in the description, grab this if you are interested, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.